So welcome guys to the Sales Architect podcast. I'm here today with Aaron Evans, who is the Director of Sales Enablement at Global Data. Hey Aaron, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Anytime. Well, thank you for coming on. There's lots to learn from you, I think, today.
The worst thing to do, in my opinion, is do nothing. Like, that's always the worst thing to do. And sometimes it presents itself that that's the easiest thing to do. But if you've got a business problem that needs solving, you're better off starting that process of trying to solve it, even if you're doing that in-house to begin with. Yeah. Without going to the market and buying a product, as an example. If you've got a set of tools that can help solve that internally, it's worth doing something. So many businesses are crippled by doing nothing and just expecting things to change, and they don't. And that paralysis can really harm businesses, because a year goes by and before you know it, you're even deeper into the rabbit hole and it's harder to undo things.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah, that's particularly pertinent. I mean, we're at the end of 2020 as we speak right now. It's particularly pertinent right now because I think a lot of businesses have put plans on hold for the last 6 to 9 months. People have been saying, well, we'll make that decision in 2021. In my opinion, some of the easiest, quickest and easiest and lowest cost changes that you can make is keep your existing workforce in place. If you're trying to sell more, let's say, or you're trying to do more with marketing, you don't necessarily need to expand your resources and invest in people. You can break apart what those people do, reassess that process flow and say, well, how can I implement a bit of software, or how can I implement a process that can automate or remove the need to do that 1 hour piece of admin that person does every day, which is taking away from their selling time or taking away from their content creation time.
Well, particularly if you look at to scale a business. I mean, I think there was a fundamental flaw in the belief that you scale through people. Well, if you don't have the processes in place and you don't have the structure in place initially, scaling through people is actually only going to exacerbate the problem, because you've got more people doing more things wrong more of the time. The trick is to come up for air and go, well, look, we might need to start again before we go on a massive, recruitment burst or whatever the case may be. And you're spot on. It's like that age-old adage of like linear relationship between people and revenue generation is gone. It's taking longer for people to ramp. Less people are hitting target. I think it's 53% of people hit target on a monthly basis, according to like national statistics. What you're better off doing is making sure that those people are at least effective, even in the months that they're not billing. At least they're effective. And one of the quickest, easiest, and best ways of getting a return on investment is through technology. So it doesn't surprise me that there's been this massive shift in innovation in sales enablement. There's also this huge Venn diagram of products in sales enablement at the moment where they're all trying to do everything. What they end up doing sometimes is everything badly. Yeah. So you ideally want to have your tech stack complementing each other with great integration that solves the specific problems you're trying to solve. A jack of all trades is precisely that. You're only going to get a little bit of value from all of them and end up spending thousands upon hundreds of thousands of dollars on stuff that's not really effective or not really being used.
So you mentioned Gong, for example. Can you just give like a really brief overview of what that is for the listeners if they haven't heard of Gong before?
Well, if you haven't heard of Gong, I suggest you get your wallet out and invest in them, because they're incredibly hot topic at the moment, and their functionality is phenomenal. And fundamentally, it's a conversational analytics tool, right? So if Gong was analyzing our conversation now, it'd be able to tell you who's doing the most amount of talking by percentage, it'd be able to tell you the keywords that are coming up, be able to tell you which questions were asked, how you dealt with those questions, be able to tell you the gaps in silence, be able to tell you the patience ratio of how quickly you spoke after the other person. In terms of building like a top line view of how your conversation went and the sweet spot analytics of what good and what bad looks like. It's a bloody good tool, and I recommend anyone buys it when the time's right to buy it. Don't rush out and buy it if you've got 2 salespeople and you haven't worked out your value proposition.
Exactly, yeah. And what other types of systems do you use, and what benefit do they give to a business?
Yeah, I mean, LMS is a must-have in my opinion. A decent learning management system is what you need. The one I'm most accustomed to, which I love, is one called WorkRamp. It's not like massively used in the market, which I'm surprised about, but I've gone through 3 or 4 big processes of embedding LMSs into companies, and for me, WorkRamp is the best by a mile. There's a couple of bits of functionality that I love on it, and one is its integration with Zoom. So I can set you a task. I can do some training with you now, and then set you a task for you to do it now over Zoom. It gets sent to me, and I can score that Zoom call. But again, an LMS is another great example that it's hard to build. You've got to spend time getting your content together. You've got to spend time building out your modules, your curriculum. And it doesn't mean you now don't do training or coaching. It's just another delivery mechanism and another modality of engaging people. But you can run your onboarding process through it. So you can do pre-boarding before people start in your business. You can give them access to WorkRamp, and you can, first of all, test how good they are through WorkRamp, but you can test their hunger for doing the job. Someone turns up and you've sent them WorkRamp and they've not done any of the tasks in it. It's like, well, it's not a great sign for your onboarding process. So yeah, I mean, I think WorkRamp from an LMS point of view is really good. And I think COVID-19, with us working remotely, has shone a massive light on people's sales enablement tech stack. People have seen very quickly that they were probably behind the 8 ball in some of the stuff they need. Like video outreach now is like the hot topic in sales. But me sitting here in my kitchen with like a 60-watt light bulb is not going to engage people, right? So people are having to send out now proper cameras, proper light stands, proper, hoodies and caps and marketed, swag that they're wearing in the video. So it's not just going, let's go and do video. And I said in a LinkedIn message the other day, in a LinkedIn post the other day, just because everyone's doing it, it doesn't mean they're doing it well. So you need a thought out strategy, and you've got to think about how it interacts with the other products that you have, but also the other processes that you have, and also what you're trying to achieve. Like doing video for the sake of doing video doesn't mean anything. Knowing that everyone's at home and it's got a 30% reply rate, and that people are more likely to look at video and know that it's a more accessible way of them learning about your proposition. Oh, that's a bit more interesting. How do we harness that and turn it as part of our workflow? That for me is not just let's do video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's the same as like a professional photographer and someone that's just got the latest iPhone, which has got the best camera ever, right? It's not it's the same thing as saying, well, I can go and take professional quality studio photos now with my iPhone or whatever. I'm guilty of all the things that you just said, by the way, because currently I'm not using it, but I bought a light box so that I could do proper videos. And right now I've just got 2 lamps on my desk because I can't be bothered to set the light box up because it takes too long.
Sending a video to a CEO of you doing some zany thing, or like whatever it is you're doing, you got to know your audience a little bit. And I think part of the training we're putting together is not just around just do video, but it's about be conscious about what you're doing on that video and who you're trying to engage and what they need to know. Like if you were reaching out to me on video and you didn't teach me something I didn't know before I watched the video, I'm unlikely to respond. I want to learn something from your video that I didn't know beforehand. Then you've got me, right? Then I'm engaged. And then the call to action becomes a lot easier. But I'm guilty of responding to quite a few of them, even when they're bad. Like the natural coach in me comes out and goes, oh, try and do this, try and do that, which is probably really patronizing.
But that's giving value to people. Like free exchange of value is the best way to sell still.
That's the best way of prospecting. The best way of prospecting is showing that you're an equal in what you know and educating the client on something they didn't know about before that's relevant.
What advice would you give to managers to get them to really move in the right direction with that?
If you distill down the ultimate job of a manager, right, it's making the rep better than they were yesterday. Yeah, that's the fundamental part of their job. Number 2 is conveying the overall company strategy in a way that the rep is excited and wants to work at that business. Yeah, and that includes the values. And number 3 is creating a localized culture where the rep's head springs off the pillow every day and they want to come and work for you and your team. And then lastly, report on that information. My experience, where do you think managers spend most of their time in the job? Probably reporting on the information. So they often are guilty of doing the very thing that they tell their reps not to do, which is do the things that are the most business critical. And that's the same with managers. Like, don't worry about reporting. If your manager above you can't get the right information, it's not because you're not reporting, it's because they can't use the CRM correctly, or they've not built a report to do it properly. There's certain things that you have to report on. There's certain things that you should say no. You've got to push back on stuff that's not business critical. And it's the same with reps, is that you should be encouraging them to do the stuff that's actually going to affect business coming in, that's going to make it easy for the customer to buy.